What's up, guys, and welcome back to Job Site Conditions right here on Deco-Crete TV. My name's Jeff, and on today's episode, we're going to show you guys how to change the color of plain gray concrete using nothing but color hardener. Now, this is going to be a step-by-step video with all the tools and techniques that you'll need, so stay tuned and you're going to learn all about it. Buddy in the frame. So today's project rates as a 5 on our DIY meter, and we're going to be using this color hardener here from Deco-Crete. So we already have quite a few videos on our channel about color hardener, so please check out the links as they pop up. Or you can go browse through our color hardener playlist, and if you can't find the info you're looking for there, please let us know, and who knows, maybe we'll make a video on it in the future. So learning to use color hardener is really probably one of the biggest steps you can take to elevate your stamped concrete work to the next level. Color hardener might seem a little bit old school, but there are plenty of reasons that most of the top contractors in the industry still use it today. And the first thing is more color options. A color hardener can create such a wide variety of colors, and even in shades that would not even be possible with integral color. Now, you can also use multiple colors on the same slab to create a marbled effect. Now, Deco-Crete has 40 standard colors on their chart, and they're all the same price. So no more adjusting job prices for the last minute color change. Now, sticking with price for a second, there's another benefit to color hardener, and that is no washout fees. Most ready mix plants are going to charge you a washout fee for adding integral color to that truck, and color hardener just eliminates this entirely. The next thing is color consistency. Now, integral color can be pretty finicky when making multiple pours, and contractors, man, they put themselves through a lot of stress to ensure consistency from slab to slab. Color hardener, on the other hand, the color is in the bucket, not in the truck, and as long as you cast the proper amount on the slab, the color will be consistent every single time. Now, the fact that you're only coloring the surface of that concrete means you can just easily separate colors on the same slab. Forming up borders and bands separately is not required. You can do it all monolithically out of the same truck of concrete without any extra forming. Now, next up is durability, and this is a big one. So due to the color hardener's high concentration of Portland cement and sand, well, the surface strength of that color hardened concrete, it can cure out to over 8,000 PSI. Now, this is huge in harsh weather environments because it's just gonna hold up to salt damage a lot better than integral or uncolored concrete. Now, all that extra cement and sand, they do have another benefit beyond durability. It's going to use up a lot of that excess bleed water, and it adds density to the surface. So it's going to trowel out nicer, finish better, and this is all going to lead to really clean, crisp impressions. Now, you can also mix that color hardener with water to make a slurry that is just incredibly helpful in fixing problems. Now, I can't even count how many blowouts, surface cracks, or stone pops that I've fixed over the years using nothing but color hardener slurry. Now, this slurry also leads me to my next point. Color hardener is awesome for steps. Now, the ability to make that colored slurry, that means you can finish those risers anytime you want in a controlled environment. You don't even have to worry about messing around with them while you're stamping. So I know what you guys might be thinking. If color hardener has all these advantages over integral, why doesn't everybody use it? Well, it's like anything else in life. You gotta take the bad with the good, and for some contractors, the downsides of color hardener are just a little bit too much to get over. The first one of those is going to be manpower. Now, coloring concrete this way adds a whole nother step to an already intense process. Now, for a slab of any size, this means having at least one extra person on the job just to throw color hardener. And honestly, if you don't have enough help, using color hardener could actually make your job turn out worse than if you just use integral. Now, there's also going to be more mess. I mean, color hardener is messy, bottom line. Now, there are things you can do to protect the surroundings of the slab. Our favorite one is just spraying soap on the walls or whatever else you're trying to keep clean. Some people still prefer to hang plastic, although I've never been a big fan of that. Either way, there's still going to be a bunch of dust flying around, and your wife will probably even be able to tell what color you used that day when you got home. Now, I've also talked to a lot of contractors over the years who have a very similar story to tell. They tried color hardener once, but they had a bad experience with it, and they just never want to use it again. Now, this usually comes from trying to pour too much at a time on a hot sunny day, not using any finishing aid, trying to use a magnesium bowl float, not having enough help, not having any extra weight on their floats, and really just not knowing what to expect. I mean, really, they had all the cards stacked against them, things went wrong, and I definitely understand why they don't even want to talk about color hardener anymore. So, if this sounds like you, or if you're just new to this, here are a few rules to follow. The first one is smaller pours. So 600 to 800 square feet is really the sweet spot for most crews throwing color hardener. But if you're new to it or you're short-handed that day, you might want to keep them under 500 square feet. Now next up is to keep the color hardener fluffed. So color hardener really just packs down as it sits in the bucket, and you won't really be able to throw it very well when it's like that. So always start by shaking the buckets up, and then you're gonna constantly fluff it with your hands as you go along. So number 3 is don't throw it all at one time. Instead, try to throw about 70% of that color on the first pass and 30% on the second. Now this is gonna help it float in better, and it's gonna be more efficient because after that first broadcast is floated, well, you'll be able to see what areas need more color and what can be left alone. Oh, next up is let the hardener wet out before floating it in. Now floating color hardener in right after casting is really, is one of the worst mistakes you can make. It needs to completely wet out first or is not gonna go well. You also need to make sure that you have finishing aid. Now, you're not gonna need it on every single job, but when you do need it, it is a must-have item. So always have it with you. That way you can adjust to the conditions as needed. So sometimes that finishing aid just isn't gonna be enough on its own, or you might just have a few stubborn spots that you're trying to work in while finishing, and you're gonna need some extra weight. Now form stakes and bricks, they can get you through in a pinch, but these little guys right here are made to fit right on your bowl float, and they seem to have just the right amount of extra weight. So lastly, start throwing that hardener as soon as you can and work quickly. So just remember that you've got to color this slab before you can start stamping. Getting behind on the color hardener, that just means you're going to get behind on the finishing, and before you know it, you're going to miss that opportunity to start stamping just at the right time, and from there things just tend to get worse and worse. The best way to avoid this whole chain reaction is to start throwing that hardener as soon as you have 2 to 3 bowl float widths poured out. Now this probably means that someone is going to need to be floating and casting hardener while the rest of the crew pours the slab. So the tools and equipment we're gonna need are, really just all the basic concrete tools that you'd need for a stamp job like this, but for color hardener, we really prefer wooden or resin bowl floats, and again, don't forget about those bowl float weights. For today's project, we're gonna be using sandstone and Ashmont color hardener for the main area and dark gray on the border. We're also gonna use dark gray antique release to stamp our flagstone pattern, and we're gonna finish it all off with D1 sealer. And don't worry, all these products and tools are all linked right down in the description below. So with all that out of the way, it's time to head to the job site and get started. So now we're out here at the job site, you guys can see what we're gonna be dealing with. We got this long sidewalk back here. There's a big fire pit back there that's gonna go on that circle. There's also a set of steps that are gonna be going down the other side of the house. And so this is the Patios for Patriots job site. And if you guys aren't familiar with Patios for Patriots, man, please check them out on Facebook. Go to patiosforpatriots.org. It's a great organization that gives free backyard makeovers to deserving veterans. And so that's what we're doing today. And so the other thing that we have is you can see we got these step liners on here. And in fact, there's quite a bit of these on this job site, both steps and just really large exposed areas of a slab. So color hardener is so great for this because we can just pour this stuff out and we can pull these forms off, keep right on going. We don't even have to worry about finishing them. We can finish these later this afternoon. We can finish these tomorrow morning. We could do it next week if we wanted to. So that's the great thing about color hardener when it comes to steps and exposed edges. So it's a little bit later in the year here, and the weather's a little bit cooler. And again, great thing about color hardener is, well, first of all, it's easier to use this time of year than it is in the hot summertime. But it'll help us be able to get on this and stamp it sooner because of all that cement that's in the color hardener. So I think the truck is going to be here in just a few minutes and we're ready to go.
So the great thing about color hardener is we don't have to worry about adding any color to the truck or wasting any time mixing anything in. We're just going to pour the concrete out gray just like it always is. So it's important to make sure that right after the straight edge, we go ahead and float the concrete first, and then we're gonna start working on the color hardener. Now, if you have borders on your job, also just make sure you cut all those in first. Then we can go ahead and just start throwing on the hardener. Now you can either throw this by hand or with a bucket lid. Now once you have that first pass thrown on, you just need to make sure that you let it wet out completely before floating it in. Now for a sidewalk like this that might only be 4 or 5 feet wide, this little magnesium derby is going to work just fine, but if this is a patio or some kind of a larger slab, we would always use a resin bowl float. So once we got that all floated in, now we can go ahead and start on the second pass. And for this pass, we just really want to focus on those areas that still look gray from the original concrete. Now for this job, we're going to be using a second color just to give it kind of a marbled look and a little bit of accent. But you know, if you were just using one color, you just go back to throwing more of that same color that you did on the first pass. Now once that second cast has completely wetted out, we're just going to float it in again. And you should really try to get everything colored in 2 passes. It's not like it's gonna hurt anything to throw more on, but in the summertime or if the sun's out, you know, you're just not gonna have time for a 3rd pass. So now that we got the main area completely colored, we're gonna go ahead and get the border color on. Now please check out this episode of Technique of the Week for a full video on colored borders.
So now that we got everything all colored, both the border and the middle, right now, you know, it's a little bit cooler of a day out today, but the sun is out, so it shouldn't be too long anymore now, but we're just waiting to the point where we can just finish this and then we can stamp it. Now from here on out, this is pretty much like stamping any kind of concrete. If this was integral color, we'd be doing the same thing. I just wanted to point a couple things out. First one is, again, you always want to use steel tools when we're finishing before we stamp. But with color hardener, sometimes, just because it creates that really hard surface on top that we want, in the end, but sometimes we need a little bit more weight on our Fresno, so these weights can come in really handy. In fact, in the summertime, pretty much always gonna be running these on our Fresno. Today's job, being a sidewalk, we're not even gonna use this Fresno. We're just gonna use a steel trowel just like this one right here. Whatever you have will work. This just happens to be my favorite one. It's also nice to have when we have a border on here with 2 colors, just to have a little trowel like this to trowel the border. We can't mix our tools around anymore because we don't want to get, that middle color from the middle on the border or vice versa. It's also really unhandy if you have a trowel that's too long for that border. So we just like these little guys here. And so all we're gonna do is finish it up and we'll get straight to stamping and then we'll be on to washing tomorrow. Well guys, that's pretty much it for this week's show. Special shout out to Patios for Patriots for the incredible job they do at giving back to veterans. And thanks to you guys for watching these videos, and man, we really appreciate all the support that you guys show to the channel. Please leave us a comment if we missed anything or if you have any questions on using color hardener. For more information on in-depth live trainings for decorative concrete, please go to Deco-Crete.com and click on the training tab. If you guys found this video helpful, please let us know by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. And if you're already subscribed, don't forget about that bell icon so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos, and it really helps our channel out. So from all of us here at Deco-Crete TV, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.